Hi there, Tracy, coming at you with a mini album process video. So this has been requested since I shared my video of my 20 different mini albums that I have made over the years. I got a lot of requests from people who said they'd love to see me making a mini album. And I thought to myself, well, I don't really have a reason to make a mini album. And then my daughter graduated from junior high, and now I have a reason to make a mini album. So I will tell you what I'm doing. I have made a little prototype of this album so that I have a sense of how it's going to work. But when I was making this, it's flawed in a bunch of different ways, in a few ways, not a bunch, it's in a few ways. Let's be kind to ourselves. Yeah, it's a little bit flawed. I made a few things wrong and I didn't follow the instructions. I didn't even look at the instructions. So yeah, I figured out what probably I would have known already if I had just looked at the instructions. I kind of assumed this, I'm using this, I'm all over the place, aren't I? Yeah, so what I did was I am using this Biggs XL die. It is from Lori Whitlock from Sizzix, and it makes this little album. It makes all of these pieces to make the album, and then there are these sort of minimal instructions inside. It says to make 6 of these, 2 of those, and 1 of those, and then to put it together. I kind of followed it, but this part was not all that clear. And it says, for detailed instructions, visit sizzix.com/instructions. And because this die is so old, I just assumed that the instructions aren't there anymore, but they probably are. I don't know why they would take them down. They're probably there. So feel free to go ahead if you have this die and actually look at the instructions. I am not going to do that because I already figured it out. So let's see, I'm cutting my paper down. So this is going to be the base of my album, like the structure of my album. What I've done here is I have cut down pieces of 8.5 by 11 Neenah 80-pound Desert Storm cardstock, which is their craft version, what they call their craft color. And so I have cut this down to half sheets so that I can run it through my die cut machine. Now, because I've already made one of these albums, I already have some pieces already made. So I had 4 of these leftovers because I cut them out of craft and then I decided to cut them out of patterned paper. So I didn't use all of them. So I have some leftovers. So normally I would have to cut 6 of these, but I only have to cut 2. So that'll be these 2 pieces of paper. And then you do have to cut 2 of a certain die to make the outside, the outer envelope of the album as well. So that's what I'll use these 2 pieces of paper for. So what I figured from doing it the first time is that I have to use a shim with the instructions that they give. So they say to make your sandwich like this with a cutting plate on the bottom, and then I'm putting in a shim because I learned from mistakes from it not working the first time. And then you put your die face up like that, and then you put your cutting material. So I'm going to cut 2 more of actually I'm going to cut the structure first, so that's on this side. So the structure of it is here and the envelopes are here and then the little decor pieces are there. So I'm going to cut the structure first. So I just want to make sure that I'm not like hanging off the end because these are just perfectly fit. These are just perfectly cut to fit, and if you don't have it, if you have it accidentally hanging over a little bit, it's not going to cut. So just want that like that. Then you put your premium crease pad, which is what I have right here, and then you run it through your machine. So let's do that. So there we go. And then this is the piece that I want from this. Don't need any of these little pieces, so I'll put those in the garbage. In the paper recycling, of course. Now I do need 1 more of this. So yeah. So there's that piece. So now I have those two. Now all that I need is two more of this piece. So we'll put this right here. So there we go. And one more. So there we go. Now what I'm going to do this time that's different than last time is I'm going to cut myself a bunch of patterned paper sleeves. So I have the basic structure of my album in these pieces that I will put together in a few minutes. But so what I figured out when I did this is that there are two things that you could do. You could cut these sleeves out of patterned paper like I did here. The problem with this is that much patterned paper is not thick enough to necessarily go through and have your creases not accidentally cut. And that actually happened in two cases for this piece right here and this piece right here. The patterned paper actually, like all the tabs on it, broke. So this piece right here broke off, like it just cut through too much. And so what that left me with was, so what that ended up making me decide to do was to cut a piece of pattern paper and just take off the edges and just wrap it around and still use the cardstock piece as the structure for the pocket, but just have it basically clad in pattern paper. And that worked really well for this pocket. So because of that, I think I will do that for all of the pockets in this new page. The pockets will be thicker, but they'll also be more secure because of that. Also, having the pattern paper on the outside gives me an opportunity to tuck the tags in, like the wrap over this part here. So then I don't have to contend with what am I going to do to decorate this to cover up these little strips that are on every single page of this album. So I'm going to now cut 6 pieces of pattern paper that will become basically my wrapping, my outer wrapping for these 6 pockets. Okay, so I'm not sure that I have to show you the entire process of doing this very repetitive task, but I will include some of it. So the paper collections that I'm using here for this project are both Allison Kreft. They're from Echo Park and they're fairly old collections. Some of them are from the Life is Beautiful collection and some of them are from the Capture This Life Captured. This Life Captured. So as you can see, I'm just kind of shopping through those papers, trying to pick different patterns that I think are going to work pretty well with the size and shape of the pockets that I'm going to be cutting. And again, these are going to, I'm using the same die that I used to cut the pockets themselves, but I'm just going to cut off the tags, like the little tabs that allow you to glue it together so that it's going to have the shape of the pocket without the tags. And then I'll just wrap each pocket in these patterned papers. So I am cutting them all down to size first. They're really beautiful papers and it's really nice to get to use so many beautiful papers together in a project. That's one of my favorite things about mini albums is that you can really kind of use up so much of your scraps. It's a great thing to do when you have just a little amount of a collection left. Just make up a mini album out of it. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually cutting specific papers to size that I will use as mats on my front and back covers, as well as on the flap. So now I have all of my cutting done, and now it's time to start running these through the dies. So first I'm going to run this piece of paper through. This is going to be those decorative strips. So I believe I need 2 of these, 2 copies of each of these. So that's for the flap. Or maybe I just need one. And now I'm just going to cut a whole bunch of these pockets. So I already have 6 in the craft, and now I'm going to have 6 more in the patterned paper. So through the magic of video editing, I will show you one more and then we'll be done all 6. So we will start by making the base, like the outer envelope. So this needs to fold this way, and that becomes the kind of like the closure. And then this has to go like that, so that then this can bend that way and that way. You always want to bend so that the mountains are on the inside and the valleys are on the outside. So when you score, there's like a valley side and a mountain side, a divot and a bump. So we want to make this like that. So we're going to put tape on this surface. And because this is the actual structure of it, we want this to be pretty solid. So that's why I'm using score tape. Score tape is super strong. It will hold this forever and ever. And I'm putting it all the way to the seam, not in the valley. So this is the valley side that I'm putting tape on. I don't want it in the valley, but I want it just up to the edge of the valley. Oh, I'll use this while I still, oh, there you go. That's the end of that. So where does this start? Right here. And the scissors that I'll use to trim this off are my honeybee scissors. These have a Teflon coating on them so that stickers come off of them more easily. Oh, I didn't cut that down very well. I'll have to trim that again because there's little bits still sticking out. Now this score tape works best if you burnish it. So I'm just pushing it down. That kind of activates the glue and helps it to be easier to peel because the glue sticks to the paper and then it's easy to pull off the release paper. So I'm going to line this up with my grid mat because that makes it easier for me to lay things down straight if I don't have visual competition here, trying to make it tricky for me to see. There we go. So now I have this long piece and it has score lines here and score here, as well as there and there. So this becomes the structure. I'm just going to score those a little bit better, flatten them a little bit better. There we go. So this becomes the structure of my little album, just like this. And it gets more solid. Like right now it's pretty flimsy because it doesn't have anything glued to it. The more layers you put on, the more solid it gets. So we will leave that over here, and that's the thing that we will eventually decorate. Maybe we should decorate it now. Does it make more sense? It might make more sense to decorate it now while you can lay it flat. Okay, so let's speed this up. We're going to use our score tape to adhere this little decorative flap piece to the flap on the chipboard, not the chipboard, but on the craft paper piece. And so as you can see, I am using score tape for almost everything in this project, but what I'm doing here is I'm actually running a bead of liquid glue along the score tape because that just gives me a little bit more wiggle room to be able to place it. If it's not in exactly the perfect place, I can wiggle it around a little bit because the liquid glue gives me a little bit of open time, I guess. And I don't even know if that, that might undo the the powerfulness of the score tape. I'm not sure, but I did it because I didn't want to mess up the project. So as you can see, I am just placing these little decorative strips in between the score lines, so they become almost like a decorative binding edge on them. And then this piece is the piece that I cut to spec. So I had done some measuring there. You saw me do the measuring. And now I'm just going to do the gluing here. And I don't know if I'm going overboard with the gluing here, but I do not want this to fall apart. I have a feeling that a lot of teenagers are going to be handling this book when I finally give it to my daughter. So I just want to make sure that everything is on there really good. Really, those last couple of pieces were just to make it so that it wasn't bumpy. Like if I've got score tape on there, I want it to be all the way across so that it's not different depths at different places where the score tape is under it or isn't, because the score tape is thick. It's thicker than tape runner. So there we go. That might be overboard, but as far as adhesive goes, but at least it will lie flat because it's all the same width. And I'll just place that the best that I can right there. And so there's a very slight amount of matting that happens where you can see the edge of the craft paper. And I really, really like that. So basically the whole outside of this structure will be that blue pattern. And then the very front cover will be this red pattern or pink. It says "Life is Beautiful" all over it. So cutting a little head in the process, I glued that down the exact same way that I did the back panel, and now my whole structure is completely decorated. So next, I have to get started working on these pockets. So I'm going to start with the actual pockets. So I'm just having a look at how this is going to line up because I have done one of these, but I did it after the fact. I didn't do it beforehand. So that was on my little sample album that I made, my little prototype. So I'm going to use my trimmer here to cut off the tabs. I don't need those. And what I'm left with is just the outside shape of the pocket. I'll do that for every single one of them. So I just cut ahead so that now they're all done. And this is how they're going to work. You leave a flap out, which is the flap that connects the pocket to the other pockets. And you just kind of fold it together. I'm using thinner score tape here. This is the 1/4 inch instead of the 1/2 inch size. And so I will do that for every one of these pockets, and then I will come back. So here I am just doing the very last one, and now I have all of my pockets ready to go. So now I have 6 pockets here. That's how many I have cut and created. And what I need to do here is figure out how they're all going to fit onto one another. And so I'm going to add some score tape. This is the 1/2 inch score tape, which is about the width of each of those tabs. And I'm just going to place the score tape on each one of those tabs and then cut off the excess. Putting it on too long like that and then cutting it off allows it to be glued on from end to end exactly perfectly. I'm just having a look at how my other project is structured just to see what I need to do here. And the last one is just going to adhere right onto the project. So I didn't need a flap on that one. But then what I'm doing here is I'm basically taking each flap and attaching it to the pocket in front of it or behind it, depending on how you're holding it. So there we go. And then that first pocket doesn't have a flap, but every pocket is attached to the flap. It has a flap that attaches it to the pocket in front of it. So there we go. That is how my album is going to look. And now basically all that I need to do is clad each of these pockets in its patterned paper envelope or covering, or however you want to think about it. So this just allows me to see how all the patterns are going to look beside one another. I don't want to put two patterns that are too similar to one another too close together. And I'm using score tape here. I think that liquid glue would have been fine. I just didn't want to have to worry about like it getting wavy. You know how when you use a lot of liquid glue, sometimes this is pretty thin pattern paper, and I don't want it to get all buckly and wavy. So I thought it would be easier to just use the score tape, but feel free to use liquid glue. See, here I am using liquid glue here. I think that liquid glue is a less expensive way to do this for sure. And it's a little bit more forgiving because it does have a bit of wiggle room. But I think one of the reasons I decided to put score tape, particularly around the outside edges, is that this project is going to be handled a lot. And I do not want the edges to start to curl off or to let go. And I'm not 100% sure about how this craft tacky glue from Simon Says Stamp is going to work on a project like this, because I haven't had this glue for very long. It's clogged for the first time. I keep expecting it to clog, and it didn't clog until now. But so I decided to just use Tombow Mono Multi Adhesive because that's on hand and I love that glue. So I'm fine with using that on this. But if memory serves me correctly, I mean, it was a month ago, so I don't know for sure. Oh, look. So here, I guess I did decide to use the glue on the whole thing. I think my first idea was to use score tape on the very edges and then glue in the middle. But yeah, I'm doing it this way. It was over a month ago that I did this, so my memory is not so great. Not over a month ago. It was less than a month ago. So what you'll notice that I'm doing here is I'm actually gluing one side, and then I'm kind of tenting it over, like draping it over the pocket. And then once that one side is on, that holds it in place, right? And then I can glue the other side in place. I think that if I were to try to glue both sides at once, it would be too difficult. So I think you get the picture. I will cut the rest of this out. Okay, so here we are with all of my pockets clad in pattern paper. This adds quite a bit of bulk to this project, and it really limits how many things I can put in these pockets and how many photos can be in this project. So if you wanted to keep lots of tags and photos in this album, I would recommend that instead of doing 2 layers like I did, like cardstock for the bottom and then pattern paper layer on top, I would recommend that you actually just do 1 layer, like either find a much thicker pattern paper and make the whole thing out of that, or just go with a cardstock as your pockets. So as you can see, I'm using that Tombow Mono Multi Adhesive to glue the first pocket onto that front cover. And I'm using this score tape as basically kind of like as a backup to make sure that it's got something really, really strong on there. And like I said, I'm not 100% sure that I don't negate the effect of the score tape by putting the Tombow Mono Multi on top of it. I don't really know, but I'm doing it this way. So that Tombow Mono Multi Adhesive dries super fast. It gets tacky very fast. And already this album is looking so much better than the other one. There are no little tabs to have to worry about. All of the tabs are hidden under the patterned paper. And it's a very, very thick album. Like it is really limited in terms of how much space there is for photos and tags, but I'm going to have some photos and tags in this album. So one thing that I'm going to do, I just keep playing around with it just to see how it works and make sure that it is the way that I want it to do. But one thing I'm going to do here is just take my powder tool and put powder all over that bottom edge, because all of the seams in those pattern paper coverings, all of the seams are on the bottom of the album, and so there's the potential there for some glue to ooze out. And with Tombow Mono Multi adhesive, it never quite dries because it's a temporary adhesive and a permanent adhesive, and so if any oozes out, it's not going to dry. So that's what the powder will do, is it fixes that problem. It just makes the glue all like dried because there's powder on it instead of it being tacky. So it's another day. You might have seen that my camera changed a little bit there. So it's another day, and I have pulled out these Lawn Fawn dies. These are the small journaling dies from Lawn Fawn. And they come in a set with a bunch of other smaller dies, but I like them because they cut a rounded corner 3x4 photo, or a 3x4 card. And I have both. I have the large and the small, but what I'm using today is the small. So it cuts a 3x4. And what I'm doing is I'm going to cut a whole lot of paper because I want these to be matted. Now, again, matting is a problem because I don't have much room in this. I am being... I'm not sure why I'm being so liberal with my layers here, because it means that I can't have as many photos. But I really like the look of these photos with the rounded corner, and the easiest way for me to get a matted rounded corner photo is to just do it by hand, as opposed to I don't know how to use Photoshop, and I'm not good at technology. So this is the best way for me to make a matted rounded corner, is to just kind of do it with the paper. If I was willing to go with square corners, I could have trimmed down all of these photos so that they had a white border on them and then matted it that way. But because I want the rounded edge, that means extra layers here. So what I'm going to do is for each of these photos, now I was thinking that I could get all of these in this album, but there is no way that all of these photos are going to go in this album. So what I was planning to do was to cut the craft cardstock with the die, and then cut the white cardstock with my trimmer, and then round the corners with my corner rounder. And then I'm also going to round the corners on my photo with the same corner rounder. And then all of our tags will look like this. So what I'm going to do is actually set up an assembly line. So you see I have a whole pile of the pre-cut tags over there to the side. They're made out of the craft cardstock. And that's that Desert Storm Nina 80-pound. And now I'm just going to keep on doing this for all of these photos. Take a piece of my pre-cut paper, round the corners on the photo, glue those two together, and then glue that down to one of my die cut cards. Okay, so now I've done that with all of the cards, or a lot of the photos, not all of them. I'm starting to realize that it's not going to hold all of the photos that I have here. So therefore, I am making some decisions here about which photos are going to make it into this album and which are not. I've already scrapbooked, done some Project Life scrapbooking, and I'm going to be doing some 12x12 pages as well. So it's okay if not everything makes it into this album. I'm trying to choose the ones that I think she would like to have, because this will be hers. Sophie will keep this. Okay, so now I've cut some more and decided which ones are going to stay and which ones are not going to stay in the album, and where they're going to go. So I'm just kind of playing around with placement here. And there you go. That's about as many as I can fit in there. So those other ones I'll use for something else. And now here's a mistake. I shouldn't have done this quite yet. I'm gluing this one shut. And I do like the idea of that one being shut, and I can't fit any more into this album, so it's not a problem that I'm losing out on the storage space. But the problem is that later I'm going to want to put a brad there, and I'm not going to have access to the inside of that pocket in order to flatten out my backs of my brad. Anyhow, that's okay. I'll deal with it. You'll see what I do about that. Now I also want to put some photos. Now some of them I printed without the rounded corners. Those are the ones that are going to go on the pages of the album. So not all the photos are going to be on tags. Some of them are going to be on the pages. And so, boy, if I can get away with not matting these, it would be great. But it looks like I'm going to mat them. Because I don't know. I just keep making my own situation worse by adding layers and layers and layers. So as you can see, I'm just matting that onto some craft cardstock. I really do like how it looks matted. I find that the craft matting on everything just kind of ties it all in and makes it look like, especially where you can see the craft on the inside of the pockets, it makes it all look like it belongs instead of it making it look like there's an unfinished edge. Now, you know what I should have done here is instead of matting these on cardstock, what I should have done is used my correction tape to draw the to correction tape the edges to make it look like they have a border. But I don't know why I didn't think of that, because I think I had been using correction tape in that way. It's my favorite craft time hack is to use correction tape as a white border or a white mat. But yeah, I am going to put a lot of layers of paper in this tiny little album, and I'm going to do my best to get as many layers as possible in here. So yes, learn from me. This is the last one I'm putting on here. And so now this album has all of its, every page has a photo on it, and every pocket has at least one tag inside. I have all the tags here. There's one tag that has the same photo, that has photos on both sides of it, but most of these tags have plain craft paper on the back. That one has photos on both sides. I was just trying to cut down on the number of layers here. That's why I did it that way, to save one tag. But yes, if you were making this album from scratch, and if I were to do this again, I would not put all those layers of white on either the tags or on the photos that end up on the pages of the album. And that would have probably enabled me to get another 3 or 4 tags in here with photos on them. So now here I am trying to figure out what I'm going to do about the tags. I want the tags to have some type of little handles on them, but I knew that if I used my Stampin' Up tab punch, it would just be too bulky. There would be way too many layers of tabs and it wouldn't be good. So I went into my small little box here that I keep my fibers and strings in, and I had a few rolls of these fibers. I don't even know where they came from, but they're sort of like a ribbon. I thought about putting a ribbon around the outside of the whole project, but the reason I picked these out was to staple them to each of my tags, so that I have this kind of, it almost gives it this junky look, like it looks like a bit of a junk journal with these thready little scraps as the little pull handles to get the tags out of the pockets. And I wanted to mix it up a little bit and not have them all be exactly the same. So I'm using this blue and white ribbon, and then I'm also with the frayed edges, I'm also going to use this yellow ribbon with the frayed edges. And then I have another ribbon that looks a little bit like seam binding. It's just plain white. I'm going to use that too because it was starting to feel like there's just too much going on here. And if I put one of those on every single tag, it was going to be too much. So the seam binding is more simple and plain, and it's just white, so it provides a little bit of balance. So here I am just looking for something different. I haven't discovered the seam binding yet, and here it is. It's from Close to My Heart. It's not really seam binding, but it looks like it. Just using my tiny attacher to staple all of those in place, and that'll keep them in place for a good long time, and I won't have to worry about, if I used adhesive, I'd always be worrying about it coming off. So it's always good to staple things that you don't want moving anywhere. I'm not paying too much attention to which tags are going in which pockets at this point. I'll pay more attention to that later, because I can always move them around. So just checking the mechanics, making sure it still opens, making sure it still closes, thinking about what am I going to do here for closure. And I decided that these Stampin' Up! Brads look really cool on this project. So I just went over to my little punch Raskog to grab my very small punch. This is a 1/8 of an inch, or actually I think it's 1/16 of an inch punch. And so there we go. And now now that I put that on, I must have recut another version of these, like another one of these decorative pieces. Using some score tape here. And then that will just cover up the back side of that brad. And I'm just using the exact same pattern paper. I don't want it to be too much, right? So if I use the same pattern, I'm not introducing a whole new pattern or anything like that. So it's good. And I'll put that piece right there. And at this point, I'm thinking about using this really skinny light blue ribbon. And so, yeah, this isn't going to work, but I'm thinking that I like the idea of just kind of wrapping it around and then tying it. It looks nice, but it's not, because the ribbon is satiny, it's going to keep slipping undone, and it's not really what I want to do. So here you see me just pulling apart that pocket that I had glued it shut. I can't pry it apart. So what I did was I just tore off the photo, and I will just cut through all of these layers. Oops, that's not going to work. So I'm just going to use my Stampin' Up! Piercing tool here to just pierce it, since my hole punch won't reach that far. I just pierced it and just kind of like wiggled it around a bit to make the piercing a little bit bigger than normal. And now I'll just put that photo back in place. I'm going to cover it up with score tape just so that it softens it a little bit. So there's not like sharp metallic edges rubbing up against the back of the photo. I'm still determined to use this ribbon, but ribbon doesn't work this way. You got to use string. What are you thinking? It looks kind of cool, but it doesn't lay flat under the brads the way that string would. So I will now have to go and find some string. And that little box is nearby, so I should be able to just reach into that box and find some string. There it is. Decided to go with a black and white, because I was pretty sure that my title is going to be black, and so I thought that that would provide some nice contrast there. And there we go. I have my closure. Nothing like a bit of closure to feel good about a situation, right? So now I just have to tidy up some of this stuff. And then the next thing that I have to do is pick out some letter stickers for my title. So I knew I wanted it to be black, so I'm just picking out a couple of different options here that I can then trial Oh, I'm picking out lots of options. Look at me go. Wow. I have lots of options picked out here, and I forgot to change my camera, but I will change it in a second. There we go. And even though I picked out all of those, why did I pick those all out? Because I knew that I was going to use these ones, because these are one of my favorite fonts, but I do find it a little bit of a formal font. It looks kind of fancy, both in the fact that it's kind of smooth and shiny, it's skinny, and it just has that kind of formal look to it. So I love this font, but I don't use it on every project. And so this is a great one because it's about a graduation. So it's a great opportunity to use this very stylish font. So we'll put away all of the other ones. And I'm just making sure that those letter stickers are on there really good, because stickers, especially chipboard stickers, have a bad reputation for popping off, but these ones seem to be sticking. I was ready to reinforce it, but I didn't have to. Just having a second look at the mechanics of it and making sure that it all works. And next, it's going to be time to do some decor. Got to decorate this. I have all of the stickers from those same collections that I've been using, the Alison Kreft collections from Echo Park, the Capture Life, and the Life is Beautiful. And this sticker I thought was perfect for the back. It says, happiness looks like this. And I like how it just kind of blends in with the pattern paper on the back. And then I added that awesome sticker. And that's about all that I do at this sitting. And I'm going to leave this until a couple weeks, actually. I'm going to do a bunch of other projects and just wait. And so here we are today, and I picked up my project again today, and I'm going to finish it off. So my plan for this is to put some stamping on the backs of each of these tags. So I gotta take those out in order to do that. And then I think I plan to put some either phrases or stickers or something on the other sides of each of those pages. That one side has a photo on each page and then the other side is blank. And so that's what my plan is for today, is to finish this one off so that when Sophie comes back from her sleepover tomorrow, I'll be able to give it to her. I don't think she knows I'm working on it. I wasn't hiding it, but she doesn't come in here very often, so I don't think she's seen it. So first I have to decide what stamping I'm going to put on the back, and I do want these cards to all have a very consistent look. So I'm going to put some journaling lines on the back so that Sophie herself can add some journaling to each of these. I'm going to use that Ellie's Studio. It's called Noted Volume 2, those lines. So I'm going to use that. And that one fits perfectly, but it's not, it has like date and place, and that's going to be the same for all of them, so I don't really need that. I'm going to put the lines. So I've decided I am going to use my MISTI tool just in case I misstamp any of this. This project has been a long time coming, and I don't want to have to start over or make something over again. I do have plenty of extra tags, so it's not the end of the world, but I thought I'd use my MISTI. I am stamping tone on tone. I had some glue on my MISTI and it got on the photo, but that's okay. You can't really see it. I'm using tone on tone stamping, so that's craft cardstock, and I'm stamping with Crumb Cake ink from Stampin' Up, which is their craft colored ink. I like how that looks. It's nice and not too bold, but still bold enough that you can see them. So now every tag has some lines on the back of it, except there is one tag that has photos on both sides, so that one obviously isn't going to get anything added to it. And now I'm pulling out some stamp sets because I want to do some extra stamping on this. And at this point, this project is so thick and bulky that there is no way that I can add stickers to these tags or anything, like maybe washi, but I'm trying to do it all in stamps so that it doesn't add any more bulk to this project. I'm going to add some stickers on the outside pages, so that will be about all that I can do here. So this this tag has a photo of Sophie with her longtime friend and a friend with whom she watched Friends a lot with. And this friend actually really, really loves Friends a lot. And so I thought I would add some Friends stamps to this. I can't remember which company makes this stamp set. I had to look up what color the sofa was because I couldn't remember. It's orange. I took apart the tag, like the little piece of ribbon at the top, because I didn't want to stamp on it. So I just took it apart and then I restapled it. But I think that that's kind of cute for the back of that one because Leah is such a big Friends fan. That stamp set, by the way, is by the Ink Road. I just looked it up so that I could tell you that. So I'm deciding whether I'm going to reprint that photo that has a bit of glue on it, but I'm deciding not to. You really can't see it. I can feel it, but I can't see it. It's going to be okay. Now, for this one with just Sophie on the back, I thought this Life Lessons stamp from it's from a Paper Person stamp set. It's a back to school stamp set, and I'm stamping it with Balmy Blue. I really like how that looks. A little place for her to maybe do some personal journaling about how she feels about graduating. I know she's just happy to be out of that school. I don't think she has anything deep to say other than thank God. I pulled out my relationships stamps, which mostly consists of a bunch of Ali Edwards stamp sets that came in story kits. And I'm going to use this one. I had a bit of trouble picking which one I wanted to do for this. And I think I went with the togetherness equals happiness. And that is the one with her and her date. So it's sort of like, you know, there's all of the people in these photos are friends, but then there's also, you know, like Sophie's dating partner is in there as well. So I just want to kind of make it clear that she's dating one of these people. So lots of just looking at all of these stamps and thinking about the phrases and trying to find a phrase that works for each of these photos. This one looks like it's from the Friends set. It says, "Thank you for being a friend." And I stamped that in Balmy Blue too, and that's the one with her aunt. And then this is like the big group photo of all of the people. And so this one, I forget which one this one is. I'll have to wait till I see when it stamps. Doing this one in the orange from the couch, celebrating friendship. So I don't want to use too many different stamps, so I'm trying to keep with just the red, the blue, and the orange. And now this is the one with the people all posing like with Charlie's Angels type of pose. They look so great in their dresses. They all look amazing. This one I'm just putting friends. I was going to put friends and then a little camera underneath of it, but the camera didn't really fit very well. And that's that Balmy Blue from Stampin' Up. And there we go. Now we have lines and phrases on the backs of each of those tags, except for the one that has 2 photos on it. And now I'm going to leave those tags out while I decide how I'm going to decorate these pages. So each page has a photo on one side and then nothing on the other side at this point, but I'm going to put something on the other sides. And this is a bit of a process because I would really like to use up these stickers from the Alison Kreft collections that I've been using. They coordinate so nicely and it's just nice to get them used because I really like these stickers, so getting them in a project is good. I'm a little hesitant to use stickers just because it is going to bulk up this project just all that more, but it's what I'm doing. I thought about putting some of these stamp sets, like stamping a stamp and then cutting it out and using that. But yeah, I really would like to use some stickers. So that's what I'm going to try for. So I found this stamp that says "You are my person," And I thought that that was a really sweet stamp to put on the one of Sophie with Ty. And so I decided I was going to put it on the outside of that, and then I decided to put it just right down here at the bottom of the journaling. You are my person. So I'm looking at these Valentine stickers, and I'm also looking at the Alison Kreft stickers as well. And I thought that a hot air balloon made a pretty good theme for this, like a pretty good image, because it represents, you know, like moving on, moving along, soaring, those sorts of things. And then I grabbed a Tim Holtz, what is it called? Small talk sticker. And it says, leave a little sparkle wherever you go. I thought that was really nice. Then the next page had the viewfinder sticker on it. So I'm moving on to the next one. This is, I'm thinking here about what else I might want to do. But the next photo is of Sophie with her grandmother. And so that heart sticker said adventure, but I just covered it up with a flag that says makes me happy. Then the next one is pattern paper that I just like as it is with the hot air balloon. So I'm just going to leave that and not put a sticker on it. So the last one that I'm doing is the very last page. And what I decided to do was to just fill it up with a whole bunch of these phrase stickers. So the ones I'm picking out here say, just the two of us, playful, better together, dreams do come true, fun, and enjoy the ride. And then it's a picture of Ty kissing Sophie on the cheek, and Sophie looks like she's got this big grin on her face. It looks so cute. And so I thought I'd put something kissy on this one. And so there are these lips, and then there are these hearts, and the heart says moi. So I thought I'd just leave it so that it says moi. So next I'm going to just find little homes for all of these tags. And now is the time that I'm giving some thought to which tags are going where. It doesn't really matter, but I'm putting them in a thoughtful way. And yes, it is even more bulky, and it almost won't close, and it does bend out of shape a tiny little bit, but it's okay. If you would like to see me share this, I do have a separate share video. That just allows you to see it a little bit up close and to see some of the details that you might not have been able to see in this process video. So I will link that in the information section below, as well as in a card. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me, and thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate you watching my videos. If you've got anything to say, please leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, take care and have a really great scrappy week.